The muscular system is responsible for the movement of the human body. Attached to the bones of the skeletal system are about 700 named muscles that make up roughly half a person's body weight. Each of these muscles is a discrete organ constructed of skeletal muscle tissue, blood vessels, tendons, and nerves. Muscle tissue is also found inside the heart, digestive organs, and blood vessels. In these organs, muscles serve to move substance throughout the body. My name is Celena, and in this lesson you will learn the structure of the muscle system, the function, muscles of the face and neck, and diseases and disorders of the muscular system. Skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscle have very different functions, but they share the same basic composition. A muscle is made up of thousands of elastic fibers bundled tightly together. Each bundle is wrapped in a thin, transparent membrane called a perimysium. Muscle tissue is bound in bundles and contained in a sheet, sometimes called fascia, and extends to tendons. Muscle mass counts for approximately 40% of body weight in men and 35% in women. The main function of the muscular system is movement. Muscles are the only tissue in the body that has the ability to contract and therefore move other parts of the body. Related to the function of movement is the muscular system's second function, the maintenance of posture and body position. Muscles often contract to hold a body still or in a particular position rather than to cause movement. The muscles responsible for the body's posture has the greatest endurance of all muscles in the body. They hold up the body throughout the day without becoming tired. Another function related to movement is the movement of substance inside the body. The cardiac and visceral muscles are primarily responsible for transporting substance like blood or food from one part of the body to another. The final function of muscle tissue is generation of body heat. Many small muscle contractions within the body produce a natural body heat. When we exert ourselves more than normal, the extra muscle contractions lead to a rise in body temperature and eventually lead to sweating. Skeletal muscle is the only voluntary muscle tissue in the human body. It is controlled consciously. Every physical action that a person consciously performs, whether it's speaking, walking, or writing, requires skeletal muscle. The function of skeletal muscle is to contract, to move parts of the body closer to the bone the muscle is attached to. Most skeletal muscles are attached to two bones across a joint, so the muscle serves to move parts of those bones closer to each other. Skeletal muscle cells form when many progenitor cells lump themselves together to form prenucleated cell fibers. Stratified just like cardiac muscles, these skeletal muscle fibers are very strong. Skeletal muscle derives its name from the fact that these muscles always contract to skeletal in at least one place. Smooth muscle, also known as visceral muscle, is found inside of organs like the stomach, the intestines, blood vessels, lymphatic system, respiratory system, and urinary systems. It's the weakest of all muscle tissues. Visceral muscles make organs contract to move substance throughout the organ. Because visceral muscle is controlled by unconscious part of the brain, it is known as involuntary muscle. It cannot be directly controlled by the conscious minds. The term smooth muscle is often used to describe visceral muscle because it has a very smooth, ununiformed appearance when viewed under a microscope. It is spindle-shaped cells, works independently, slowly, and with long duration. It's resistant to fatigue. Found only in the heart, cardiac muscle is responsible for pumping blood throughout the body. Cardiac muscle tissue cannot be controlled consciously, so it is an involuntary muscle. While hormones and signals from the brain adjust the rate of the contraction, cardiac muscle stimulates itself to contract. The natural pacemaker of the heart is made of cardiac muscle tissue that stimulates other cardiac muscle cells to contract. Because of its self-stimulation, cardiac muscle is considered to be autonomic or intrinsically controlled. The cells of cardiac muscle tissue are striated, that is, they appear to have light and dark stripes when viewed under a light microscope. The arrangement of protein fibers inside of the cells cause these light and dark bands. Striations indicate that a muscle cell is very strong, unlike visceral, smooth muscle. An individual muscle fiber is made up of blocks of proteins called myofibrils, which contain a specialized protein, myoglobin, and molecules to provide the oxygen and energy required for muscle contraction. Each myofibril contains filaments that fold together when given the signal to contract. This shortens the length of the muscle fiber, which in turn shortens the entire muscle if enough fibers are stimulated at the same time. The fibers become shorter and thicker and pull the parts attached to them, creating a move. The stimulus to contract comes from the nervous system and muscles which receive adequate blood supply. Isometric contractions are contractions in which there is no change in the length of the muscle. For example, during a bicep curl, holding a dumbbell in constant static position rather than actively raising or lowering it is an example of isometric contraction. No joint or limb motion occurs. Isotonic contractions occur when the muscle changes length, producing limb motion. A muscle contraction is length changes while force or tension remains the same, like lifting a glass of water to your mouth. Normal tone means that there is the right amount of tension inside the muscle at rest, and that the muscle is inherently able to contract on demand. Put simply, you can tell your muscle to stop and start, and it does what you want, when you want, with the appropriate amount of force. Relaxation occurs when stimulation of the nerve stops. Calcium is then pumped back into the sarcoplastic reticulum, breaking the link between actin and myosin. Actin and myosin return to their unbound state, causing the muscle to relax. A lessening of tension, reduced number of contraction of fibers. Muscles move by shortening their length, pulling on tendons, and moving bones closer to each other. One of the bones is pulled towards the other bone, which remains stationary. The place on the stationary bone that is connected via tendons to the muscle is called the origin. The place on the moving bone that is connected to the muscle via tendons is called the insertion. Most skeletal muscles are attached to two bones through tendons. Tendons are tough bands of dense, regular connective tissues whose strong collagen fibers firmly attach muscles to bones. Tendons are under extreme stress when muscles pull on them, so they are very strong and are woven into coverings of both muscles and bones. The belly of the muscle is the fleshy part of the muscle in between the tendons that does the actual contraction. The belly's thickest part, the main body of the muscle, usually the middle part. The force generated by the contraction of the muscle or shortening of the sarcomeres is called muscle tension. A concentric contraction involves a muscle shortening to move a load. An example of this is the biceps brachii muscle contracting when a hand weight is brought upwards, which increases muscle tension. It's overstimulation of muscle fibers. More fibers contract than necessary to maintain postural tone. Muscle fatigue is a symptom that makes it harder to move as normal. When muscle continues to contract without enough rest, runs out of oxygen, lactic acid builds up, giving a burning sensation in the muscle quiver and stops contracting. Some people experience a dull aching in the muscles. They may also feel constantly tired and lack energy to perform everyday tasks. Exercise is a common cause of muscle fatigue. The frontalis, located over the frontal and parietal bones, only serves for the facial expressions, Its function is to lift the eyebrows and wrinkles on the forehead. When contracting, the procerus muscle depresses the medial part of the eyebrows and wrinkles the skin between them. This action enables frowning, making procerus an important contributor to the expansive array of human facial expressions. Extended from the lower part of the nasal bone to the middle area in the forehead between the eyebrows, where it is attached to the frontalis. Wrinkles at the bridge of the nose distinguish expressions. The corrugator draws the eyebrows downwards, producing the vertical wrinkles of the forehead. It is the frowning muscle and may be regarded as the principal muscle in expression of suffering. It's located near each eyebrow, moves the eyebrows down and inward towards the nose, has an angry expression. Nasalis is a muscle responsible for flaring of the nostrils. Some people use it to close the nostrils to prevent entering of water when underwater. It's located at the sides of the nose, compresses and dilates nasal openings, also giving an annoyed expression and sniffling. The orbicularis oculi muscle closes the eyelids and assists in pumping the tears from the eye into the nasal lacrimal duct system. It's located near the sphincter muscle around the eye, closes the eyelid, compresses the lacrimal sac. The orbicularis oris is often referred to as the kissing muscle. Kisses can involve a variety of different facial muscles, with the orbicularis oris being the main skeletal muscle involved. Simple kisses use as few as 2 to 3 muscles and burn only 2 to 3 calories, whereas passionate kissing can involve as many as 23 to 34 facial muscles and 112 postural muscles. It's a complex circular muscle that surrounds the orifices of the mouth and forms the majority of the lips, controls movements, closes, protrudes and compresses the lips, facilitates speech and helps in producing facial expressions such as anger, sadness and others. The levator anguli oris is a muscle used in facial expression, primarily for smiling, elevates the angles of the mouth, anguli meaning of angle or of a corner, used in medical names and descriptions. The levator anguli oris muscle raises the corner of the mouth when we smile. It's used in smiling and cheerful expressions. The levator levi superioris muscle is a 3-part muscle that provides facial expression and dilation of the mouth. Its course alongside the lateral aspect of the nose and its primary function is elevation of the upper lip. It's a thin band of muscle from eye to mouth, elevates upper lip, exposes the maxillary teeth, helps to produce various facial expressions such as smiling and disdain. The risorius muscle is found in the superficial layer of the facial muscles on either side of the lips. Its function is to aid in facial expression by pulling the corner of the mouth laterally via the contraction in an outward and upward motion. In conjunction with other facial muscles, this helps to create a smile or a frown and myriad other expressions in between. The depressor anguli oris, as its name suggests, it depresses, it's a depressor. The angle of the mouth, your anguli oris, and pulls it slightly laterally. Thereby, it facilitates expression of sadness and assists in opening the mouth. Originates from the mandible and inserts to the angle of the mouth. It's associated with frowning. The depressor labiae inferius is a facial muscle of the chin area that pulls the lower lip downward and forward. It originates from the middle of the mandible and inserts to the skin of the lower lip, helps lower the bottom lip and also gives an expression of sadness. The montalis muscle is a paired muscle located at the tip of the chin. It acts as the primary muscle of the lower lip. The montalis originates from the mandible, the lower jaw, and runs vertically from below the lower lip to the lower part of the chin. This muscle provides stability to the lower lip to allow to pout. The mentalis is so named because of its association with emotional and thoughtful facial expressions. The zygomaticus major is a muscle of the human body. It is a muscle of facial expression which draws the angle of the mouth superiorly and posteriorly to allow one to smile. It extends from each zygomatic arch to the corners of the mouth, elevates adverse angle of the mouth, and contributes to laughing muscles together with the risors. Masseter from the Greek to chew, prominent muscle of the jaw. The masseter arises from the zygomatic bone, the cheekbone, and is inserted at the rear of the mandible, the jawbone. One of the strongest muscles of mastification. When contracts, closes the mouth, elevates and protrudes the mandible. The buccinator is a thin-bored muscle forming the wall of the cheek and serving to compress the cheek against the teeth and to retract the angle of the mouth. Deep muscle to masseter, a main component of the cheek. Helps in mastication. Main muscle involved in playing wind instruments. The pterygoid muscles are two of the four muscles of mastification and located at both sides of the inner jaw. These muscles are lateral pterygoids and medial pterygoids. The primary function of the pterygoid muscle is to produce movement in the mandible and the temporomandibular joint, active during mastication and during mandibular movements, like speaking and singing. The temporalis comes from the Latin word tempus, meaning time. The muscle covers the temple bone or the time bone, which receives its name because the hair of the head covering its bone is often the first hair to turn grey during the aging process. It's a broad, fine-shaped muscle located each side of the temple bone to the mandible, raises and retracts lower jaw, one of the muscles of mastication. The occipitalis muscle begins at the outer part of the superior nuclei line of the occipital bone. This is where the muscle gets its name, as well as the masseter process of the temporal bone. The occipitalis muscle is innervated by the facial nerve and its function is to move the scalp backwards. The muscle receives blood from the occipital artery. The sternocleidomastoid is given its name because it originates at the manubrium of the sternum and the clavicle and has an insertion at the masseter process of the temple bone of the skull. It's located at the base of the skull on either side of the neck, behind the ear and runs down to collarbone. Its function is to rotate the head and to flex the neck. Platysma is a subcutaneous neck muscle extending from the neck to the clavicle, acting to wrinkle the skin of the neck and to depress the jaw. Lies superficially with the anterior aspect of the neck, depresses mandible and angle of the mouth, tenses skin of the lower face and anterior neck. Assists in opening the mouth, can produce an expression of sadness, surprise and horror. The trapezius muscle is a postural and active movement muscle used to tilt and turn the head and neck, shrug, steady the shoulders and twist the arms. It's a large surface muscle, extends from the occipital bone to the thorax vertebrae of the spine, stabilizes and moves the scapula and extends the neck and raises the shoulders. The deltoid muscle got its name because of its triangular shape and its three distinct sections of muscle fibers. It's located at the utmost part of the arm and the top of the shoulder, responsible for lifting the arm and giving the shoulder its range of motions, prevention of subluxation, dislocation of the head and the humerus, particularly when carrying a load. Pectoralis muscle, any of the muscles that connect to the front wall of the chest with the bone of the upper arm and shoulder. There are two such muscles on each side of the sternum, the breastbone in the human body, pectoralis major and pectoralis minor. Located at the chest, lies under the breast. Adduction and internal rotation of the arm draws the arm forward. Pectoralis minor. This muscle is located at the upper part of the chest beneath the pectoralis major. Stabilization and rotation of the scapula can be used as an accessory muscle of respiration. Muscle atrophy is a lack of use, it's the wasting away of a muscle. It is a gradual difficulty in walking and speaking, memory loss, tingling or weakness of extremities. It's impaired balance and coordination, loss of muscle coordination, numbness or tingling in arms or legs. Muscle atrophy can often be reversed through regular exercise and proper nutrition, in addition to getting treatment for the condition that causes it. Meiosis refers to any condition causing inflammation in muscles. Weakness, swelling, and pain are the most common meiosis symptoms. Meiosis causes include infection, injury, autoimmune conditions, and drug side effects. Treatment of meiosis varies according to the cause. The ruptures and acute strains can be caused by one event, such as using poor body mechanics to lift something heavy. Chronic muscle strains can result from repetitive injuries when you stress a muscle by doing the same motion over and over. Overuse of a muscle, dehydration, muscle strain, or simply holding a position for a prolonged period can cause muscle cramps. In many cases, however, the cause isn't known. Although most muscle cramps are harmless, some may be related to an underlying medical condition such as inadequate blood supply. It's painful, localized and involuntary contraction of one or more muscles. Causes may include vigorous exercise, extreme heat, sodium and water depletion. Muscle pain, fatigue and overuse are the most common causes of muscle spasms. Other causes include stress or anxiety, which can lead to muscle twitches in the face. Trapped nerves can result in spasms in the back. Sustained contraction or large number of fibers, or much longer than usual. The difference between a spasm and a cramp. Muscle spasm occur when a muscle involuntarily contracts and then relaxes. This often occurs suddenly and can be painful. A muscle cramp is similar to a spasm, but cramps last longer than a spasm and is often a very forcible contraction. Lumbago can be caused by several factors, but the main reason is the overuse of the lower back and sudden lifting of heavy loads. Lumbago can be the result of excessive bending or other repetitive motions involving the lower back. Can be caused by muscle strain or arthritis. When we're talking about strain and sprain, one is not technically worse than the other. Strains affect the tendons. An easy way to remember this is strains, tendons or muscles, and sprains affect the ligaments. Both tendons and ligaments are connective tissues and both are measured by severity. You can have a mild sprain or a severe strain or vice versa. The strain, injury to a muscle or its tendon, overstretching, overexertion, failure to warm up before exercise. Your sprain, sudden twist or wrench of a joint ligaments, could cause injury or damage to a joint, may have swelling of the joint. Let's review. Muscles move body parts by contracting and then relaxing. Muscles can pull bones, but they can't push them back to their original position. So they work in pairs of flexors and extensors. The flexor contracts to bend a limb at a joint. There are around 600 muscles found in the human body, 42 in the face and neck. The three main types of muscle include skeletal, smooth and cardiac. The brain, nerves and skeletal muscles work together to cause movement. This is collectively known as the neuromuscular system. The facial muscles, they usually originate from the skull bone and insert to the skin of the face. When they contract, the face moves. These muscles also cause wrinkles at the right angles to muscles, the action line. I hope you have enjoyed this lesson and found it informative. and hope you now have a better understanding of the muscular system. Thank you for listening.